So, I guess I'll just start.
Okay.
My name is Christina Shires, and my topic today is reading strategies in the 8th through 12th classroom. And I promise you that we will have fun today. It's not going to be a very serious presentation. And I'm just going to give a brief background, which I'm not going to do today because we have 20 minutes and whatever. Okay. As far as my background with reading strategies, I've taught the class as a class, and I've taught it embedded in my curriculum. When I taught it as a class, it was taught a couple of different ways. As a replacement for English 1 freshmen, for kids who failed it the first time around. And instead of putting them back into another failing situation, it was a credit recovery class. And then I also taught it another time as an elective for students who were identified as struggling readers by either their classroom teachers or by a standardized test that was given and they fell into an area. And so when I taught it as a class and as an elective, my students were either freshmen or sophomores, and truly their reading levels started anywhere from 2nd grade, and they would go up from there. So it really encompassed a lot of range. And it could be different things. It could be a credit recovery when it was an English class, or as the elective, it really ended up turning into a charm school, trying to make up zeros in other classes, trying to rebuild proper classroom behavior and trust with the teacher, which I'll talk about more in a little bit. A lot of people, what they seem to have problems with students in reading is memory. Just like it says, what do we want? Better memory. When do we want it? Want what? You know, they don't even remember from 5 minutes after they've read something. So how did we get here? Because my presentation when I go to NCEA is for teachers who teach from 8th grade to 12th grade. And a lot of high school teachers don't understand why children don't read at grade level. That they don't. And here's why. A lot of schools don't understand that reading is not a content area. It's a skill that you have to have. Reading is a skill directly related to 85% of all adult economic activity. If you want to be successful in this world, you have to read. And it's the skill upon which we rely in schools to transmit 85% of our curriculum. Every class you have. So if you are a struggling reader, you are struggling in every class that you have. More than 8 of 10 with severe reading problems at the end of 1st grade will go on to 3rd grade and also perform below grade level. Of those children, 88% who were deficient in word recognition skills in 1st grade continue to be poor readers in 4th grade. And of those children who leave 3rd grade reading below grade level, 74% of them, without major intensive work, don't catch up. And then by the time they get to the 9th grade, they're in the same problem. So reading time is critical in the classroom, and it's not just sustained silent reading. That is, I consider, a recipe for disaster for a lot of kids. Teachers have to model good reading, what it is. And I have this here. I'm not going to read this to you because in the essence of time, what we have today to work with. You need to read to them and you need to read with them. If a student is a struggling reader, if they keep reading the way that they're reading, they're not going to get better. They really do need someone to teach them how to do it better. If they're doing it wrong, they're going to continue to keep doing it wrong unless you show them how. And the way to do that is to model good thinking. As you're reading, stop, talk about the process that you're thinking. Be inclusive. Don't let kids hide behind that book because you feel bad to draw them out, or you don't want them to be uncomfortable. And be honest. Discuss your own weaknesses as a student. A lot of times students feel like their teacher had straight A's all through schooling and they never struggled, they never had a problem, and we all know that that's not true. How is this the Catholic thing to do? A lot of Catholic schools don't have the funds to go out and buy a special program. We don't. So we have to be creative, and I'm going to show you kind of how to do that. We care. We should care. It's a Catholic school. That's who we are. That's what we're about. We have smaller class sizes, so it's doable. We have long-term student family participation. Usually people bring their kids to our building, and they're here through 8th grade, and the Catholic Guild. It's for the kids, right? It's who we are. How do I know this works? Because I've done this with every socioeconomic background you can possibly imagine, and every age group. I have the little gun, I will explain. When I taught at the high school, I literally had police come to my room and arrest my students. For real, that is a stark contrast to my clients at Holy Name School. And I know it works for those kids because when they would leave their books in my room, I'll never forget this one time. This student left his book in my room, and his bookmark was a photograph. And it was a photograph of him at home, and he had a gun in one hand and a beer in the other hand. He was a freshman. You know, but what I was happy about was not the photograph. I was happy that he was reading because that picture moved. It didn't stay in the inside cover. It moved. I've done it with students with autism and special needs, EBD, and I've done it here with students with means, and I've seen success in all of them. The myth, we are told all of the time that math and science, math and science, math and science, but I love this part too because it shows the little kids saying, what does that say? If they can't read it. Doesn't know. A lot of teachers shy away from reading strategies because they say, I don't know how to teach reading. But you have to ask yourself, do you know and enjoy your content? Yes, of course you do. Of course you do. Do you like kids? Yes, you do. Then you can do this. It's not difficult. Most children struggle with what I call the trick with no scenery. You assign them certain numbers of pages, or even if you're reading together, and they just keep turning pages, and when they're done, they don't know anything. And I call it the trick with no scenery because when you drive home from work some days, do you all of a sudden pull into your driveway and go, how did I get here? I had to pass the grocery store. I don't remember doing that. I'm sure that I stopped at that stoplight. I don't remember doing that. But you're home, and that's how some kids read. They're asleep in here. That brings you to trouble in their content areas. I made these. I'm so proud of them. It's my new favorite thing to do is make memes. Okay? In science class, scientists on television aren't nearly as exciting as science class. That's sarcasm, obviously, because a lot of kids think science class is so boring. And social studies, it's not as exciting as Indiana Jones. It's really not. Okay? And when you think about what I've told you, that children who have struggled with reading from kindergarten through 9th grade, and they get to high school, and they've never been able to master any content whatsoever, you start to have problems with classroom behavior and not doing assignments and being defiant and disengaging from teachers. And so that's why I have, you want more extra credit, how about doing all of the regular credit? Because then when the end of the 9 weeks comes, people are throwing red flags in the air. When did this happen? What didn't just happen? It's been happening. So I encourage teachers to try and keep a strong relationship with your students, and one way you can do that is what I call the FFM, the first 5 minutes. I do a lot of journaling. I'm not going to go through the journal today because I don't think we really have time. How long have I been talking? I didn't know if it said on there. Okay. These are the strategies. Then I'll go through some. Okay. The first one I'm going to go to is the ABC Brainstorm. And I actually did this today in social studies. We are going through, I'm not going to read all that to you, but I'm just going to show you the graphic that it goes with. This is an ABC Brainstorm, and I use it in addition to whatever formative assessments I'm doing with students. And what I like about it is I can use it as a during reading strategy, and I can use it as a post-reading strategy. I use this in the middle of a chapter. It's a 4-section chapter. We did section 1 and section 2. It was about the North during the Civil War. And we stopped between section 2 and section 3, and we did one about the North. And then when we moved on to sections 3 and 4, which were about the South, we did one about the South. And I really do encourage, because I teach 8th grade, and I encourage them to think beyond just the letter. Don't just look at S and say slavery. This is not 4th grade. Okay. I really do encourage them to think about concepts, and they rise to the occasion. But what I would tell teachers when I'm presenting this is they're the experts of their classes. They know their kids better than anybody. And so they know how far to push them. They know when to pull back. So with this class that I have, these 8th graders, I taught them 5th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. I know them pretty well. Probably better than they want me to know them. So I know when to push them. And I do. For this assignment today, I required a lot of analytical type thinking. And at the bottom of this, it gives you an assignment for a summary paragraph. As they get better practiced at this, what you can give them is a thesis statement. If you wanted to be more specific and make it a little more difficult, you could narrow your focus of your topic, and you could say, industrialization of northern states. And then you could limit their ABC brainstorm to that. So it's not as general, and you really are challenging them a little bit more. Or if you have a small group that you differentiate for, I usually have a group of about 5 kids in the back that I push their desks together, and they're doing something different than everybody else because they're just a little bit farther ahead and I want to push them. So I might do that with them. I'll give them a little bit ramped up assignment for them to do. This next one I like, it's called the Bookmark Technique. And I would say that this is more for struggling readers, and I use this as a during reading strategy. But accomplished readers who are grade level, they enjoy it just as well. And you create 4 bookmarks by folding 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper into 4 equal parts. And as they read, they make decisions about and record information on the little bookmarks. And you can read. I don't mean to insult you by reading to you, but bookmark 1, write about, or they can sketch, again, depending on where your students are. If you are someone who teaches resource or lower level students, you might want to have them sketch it instead of writing. Bookmark 2, something that was confusing. Number 1 was something that was interesting. Number 2 was something confusing. Then you can adjust it however you want. The third one would be a theme or a concept or a change that they think the whole class needs to discuss. Because everyone should feel like their opinion is important enough to be heard. And then the last one, a mental image or dialogue that help them to understand what they read. And I really do try to do different things with the students as often as I can to break up the monotony of the same thing over and over. The character hands, I'm not going to pull that one up for you, but I'm just going to describe it. I like this for very low struggling readers, and parents can do this at home if they have children who struggle. But they just trace their hands. I used to do this a lot at the high school. They trace their hands, and you can make this easy or you can make it very difficult. You can have them pick a character, and they write that character's name on their palm on their paper. And you could do something as simple as physical traits, internal qualities. Or if there was a big conflict, the character before the conflict, the character after the conflict. You could apply that for, it doesn't have to be literature, it could be for social studies, it could be for religion, it could be for pretty much any content area except for math. Sorry, Mrs. Have that for you. Concept ladder, I'm not going to read this to you, but I am going to show you the example because I think the example speaks for itself. And I have a few that I'll show you. But you start them with a topic of whatever it is that you are studying in your class. And this works for social studies, it works for science, it works for literature, it works for economics, it works for anything, I think. You start with a basic topic and you give them the topic. And this one is internment camps. And then they start to fill in questions. Why did people have to go? Who had to go? Was it like a camp? It's a very misleading term, isn't it? It's not really a camp. The opposite of a camp, I would say. What were the conditions like then? How long did they stay? What happened to their stuff? They go. Where were the camps? Here's another example of a concept letter. This is one for science. Again, these are pretty generic, depending on what you're doing. Make it more difficult or easier. Bacteria. How is it spread? What are the ways we can keep bacteria from getting into our body? If salmonella is one kind, what are some other kinds? Can you die from bacteria? How common is it? Is it contagious? How can we protect ourselves in restaurants and hotels? There's one on society. This could be for sociology. Gangs. Why do people join? How do you get up? How do you get out? Are there girls in gangs? What is an initiation one? How do gangs choose their names or their colors? What is the difference between a gang and a club? And where would there be more that says max? That's what it is. Cities and why. And then there's just a blank concept there. Oops. Minute paper and muddiest point. I think this is the easiest reading strategy, and I'm not going to read it to you because it can be explained so easily. Anybody can do this in 2 seconds. Minute paper is almost like an exit slip. You can give them a topic. Tell me what you know about this from today. Everybody get out a piece of paper, tear it into thirds, share it with your neighbor. Done. Write your name at the top. Put it on my table on your way out the door. And then I know from today what they got. What's the big idea? What did I tell them that made them think that's the most important thing? And the muddiest point is more beneficial to me even than the minute paper, because I'll say, have you ever heard the expression clear as mud? Okay. So many times we will give a lesson and we will think everybody got it. It's the best day. I was a rock star. I was the pigeon, not the statue, right? And I will say, okay, write down something that was confusing today. Something that I just didn't give you, you know? And I will get these little slips of paper back, and I'm like, oh my gosh, today was horrible. Was I in a parallel universe? Does anybody, did anybody learn anything today? I'm a terrible teacher. I need to just go somewhere else. So it kind of allows for me to do what I call mid-course correction. I need to go back, I need to do this again. They're in no way, shape, or form ready to go forward, or they got it, keep it moving. We're wasting time by staying on this. So it helps me a lot to know where my kids are. I love the Post-it. This is one that I've used at the high school level. I haven't used as much here. Mostly because the high school, they just gave us boxes of supplies. It was wonderful. But here, it's Christmas. Post-its are a wonderful thing. And a lot of times I have a little picture of, this is from Lord of the Rings, in case you didn't get my reference. But a lot of times when kids read a book or a textbook, they feel this small. They really, really do. And everything else is that scary. And so a really good during reading strategy for me as a teacher to keep track of what they're doing is I give them little Post-it notes. And they would even tear them into little pieces. And I would say, put a sticky note where your mind starts to wander or wonder. Okay? I'm not getting visual pictures in my head anymore. That is a clear sign that you are done. Okay? I'm not getting the dialogue in my head. I don't hear voices. It's just the Charlie Brown lady. Okay? I'm not asking questions or predicting as I go. That is a sign of them checking out and going on the trip with no scenery. They are done. It is over. Or I just don't understand. I'm so lost. I need Yahoo Maps. I don't know what I'm doing. And that helps a lot. Okay? And the raft. This is one that I use a lot. I use this with 8th grade. I've used this at high school. And it's role, audience, format, and topic. What I like about this is you can use it in any content area at all. It's a writing and a reading thing embedded together. The role, who do you want to become in the writing? So we read Sunrise Over Illusion. So they could become any character in the book. They got to choose. Allows them a lot of creative freedom. The audience, who are you writing to? The format, are you going to write a letter, a newscast, an article, a journal? Are you going to do Twitter? Are you going to do texts? And what is the focus of your writing? And then I give them some choices, because the first time we do it, they're like, oh my God, you're a crazy lady. I've never done anything like this before. I'm out of my comfort zone. It's not a 5-paragraph essay. Kill me now. Okay? So then I give them options. Okay? And this was, sorry. And then I gave, like for Sunrise Over Fallujah, I gave them things, I gave them a theme. Your theme is your character going through internal conflict. I try to make it a little easier for them. I don't want them to have a heart attack. So I said internal conflict. What types of internal conflict are the characters going through in Sunrise Over Fallujah? It's about the IRA. So we brainstormed as a class, and I literally was typing this list as they're yelling at me. Like they're talking to me. We're about halfway, 3/4 of the way through the book. And I'm writing all these things down. And they came up with, as you can see, a great list of all these things. And so as they were writing their raft, they had all that stuff that the characters could talk about. And they have to quote from the book. They have to. They can't just give a summary. They have to cite examples using quotes from the text. They love it. The last one I want to talk about is these little Zelf dolls. Has anybody seen these? Okay, some people think I'm crazy, but I'm going to tell you right now that these are the berries, and I will tell you why. I first started using these little dolls. I have about 5 of them in circulation because I have a student who, remember you're all far away and we're all friends here, right? Who has a disorder that revolves around hair. And so I was thinking, what can I do to get this student to stop doing this? And what's the same texturizing type thing? I got one of these little dolls. And I had another student, and I didn't want that student to be alone with this doll, because that would be weird. It's junior high. So I had another student who has a really big problem focusing. And I said, they were friends. So I said, if I give you one of these, would you play with it while we read? Because I done some research on manipulatives and kids playing with stress balls while they read and all this, and kind of goes along. Yes. So I gave this other girl this doll. And what I found was the girl who I gave the doll to, who had attention problems, takes it with her to every class. She said that it helps her to concentrate so much better and stay focused on her reading. I can't even tell you. Okay, well we're almost done. Okay. So these dolls have helped some of my students to pay attention and keep their focus and not go on the trip with no scenery. And like I said, I know some people probably think I'm crazy, but if the kids say it works for them, it works for them. I also let them move around when they read. Some kids can't do this. They just can't. So if they need to get up and move, they know that they can do that in my room. But they also know they can't act like idiots, or they're going back. And then I have a thing, but I know we're out of time. And then I'm basically going to tell them, I could seriously probably do 3 days on this. This right here is my career. And I'll give these to you when you go, but I'll turn the lights on now. But, yeah. This is probably 14 years of my life. And I have in these, and I just pulled out just a few to show you, but every content area, anybody could come to me and say, hey, do you have an article and a strategy or an activity on extended families living together? Yes. Do you have an article and activity about domestic animals attacking their families? Yes. it's a sickness and I need help. It's beyond the couch, okay? And so I'm basically just gonna reference all this stuff, but I have copies for everyone of these little nuggets of information, but I'm sorry if it seemed a little, but you're not my, like, target group. And it's an hour-and-a-half presentation in 20 minutes, so I just tried to kind of hurry and hit the high points. And I think that that's the end. So, thank you for listening.